Okay, we are live with Conor Gilmore, animation director, AnimSchool instructor. Uh, I am Jesse Draper. I do the art classes here at AnimSchool. What's really cool when you sign up for an AnimSchool class, not only do you get your regular class, but you also get free art classes along with your tuitions. We usually have a professional art instructor, guest artist. Next term, we're going to have an animatics course and how to pitch an animation. And we're also doing something really fun. Every winter term, we actually have a sketchbook challenge class that's school-wide where we, as a class, pick 10 prompts every week from the class, from the students, and we draw 10 pages a week. And by the end of 10 weeks, we have 50 sketchbook pages. So it's super, super fun getting involved with the AnimSchool community that way. But let's start from the very beginning because we have Conor here who has been developing some really cool new assignments for the AnimSchool Intro to Maya class. We've always loved our Maya class, but Conor's really kind of upped the ante and kind of created a whole journey. So Conor, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your career, how you got into 3D animation? I just love to hear, like, let's just start from the beginning. Like, why did you choose 3D animation as a career? Like, what was the kind of the dream? How did you get into this?
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. I always loved animation as a kid, and I got into stop motion of Legos when I was a little kid, and I loved it. And when I realized that that was a job, I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. So yeah, and then I grow up and I saw some reels from the school, and I got really excited. So I applied and got into AnimSchool, and so I'm an alumni of AnimSchool, and I worked on properties like Death Stranding, the video game, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and Crash Bandicoot. And most recently, I've been working with MegaSpaceFighter Productions on Lego projects, and I've been doing that as an animation director. And
How does
yeah,
that feel? So how does that feel knowing, I really like asking people when you were a kid, what you wanted to do. And you said, you love to do this stop motion Lego. How does it feel working on a Lego property since that was something that kind of got you into it in the first place?
it was amazing. Yeah, I did stop motion Lego, and then when I saw the Lego movie, I was like, oh, that's so cool. I really loved like the limited articulation where they can only rotate in so many places, and there's so much charm and fun with that. So, but yeah, I've been working and just kind of did some Lego stuff just as a hobby, and then I got connected with Camille, the owner of MegaSpaceFighter Productions, and we worked together and created a pitch, and we started winning some Lego projects. We worked on one starring Pharrell Williams, not the movie. I would have loved to work on the movie, but it was like promotional material for the movie and also kind of educational material too. So yeah, it was very fun. Very fun.
That's awesome. So how did you kind of go from working for some companies to then teaching? Like, what was, because I think that is a unique thing for where you're doing something and getting to the point where you can teach it. Like, how did you transfer over to the teaching side of animation?
That was always the plan. My teachers at AnimSchool meant so much to me. Like I'm dyslexic, so I chose animation because it's like, oh, this is a career where it's all visual. It's almost like playing with toys, right? So uh AnimSchool was really the first school environment that made sense to me because it was all visual. It was all visual language. It was and so as I was like, I gotta do this. I have to, once I work in the career for a while, I need to turn around and pass on what I've learned. And so I reached out to some AnimSchool people, and I was like, hey, I would love to teach some classes. And can I say names? Isaac, right?
Yeah, Isaac. Yeah,
Okay.
he's
Yeah,
one
Isaac.
there.
Isaac. I reached out to Isaac. I was like, "Hey, I'd love to teach some classes," and he's like, "Oh, sure, we got some intro to Maya stuff." So, I was like, "Great, I love Maya," and yeah, I worked on a couple semesters on that. The students have been great, and it's just been really exciting to teach. Um, and then Isaac was talking about like we would love to um, add some more to the intro to Maya stuff. So if you have any ideas, and they just gave me the flexibility to kind of test things out, and um, in collaboration with AnimSchool and a lot of the other teachers here, we kind of came up with this new intro to Maya course that's really exciting, because now it's no longer intro to Maya, but it's intro to production, and you'll be learning the tool, but you'll also be going through every stage of production, from of course learning the tool, learning the UI, understanding what those icons are, and then right into modeling, rigging, uh, what's after rigging? Right, animation, obviously the thing I
And
studied.
like how you make, like people might not know this, but like there's whole like crews who do lighting, like learning how to render.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those to make it look really sharp and awesome and fantastic. So lighting as well.
Oh yeah, rendering. Yeah, it's a little sneak peek behind the scenes of the studios, because people might think like, oh wow, you're an animator, you do all this stuff, but really a production pipeline is really a teamwork. It's a collaboration, and everybody's passing files to each other. So there's one guy that just focuses on like sculpting, and then they pass it on to the rigger, who's like a puppeteer, and they add the strings. It's kind of an analogy, but they make it like a puppet, like a toy, like an action figure, and then they hand that down to the animator, and the animator gets to play. I mean, gets to move it. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's a really exciting thing. And so this class, you do a little bit of everything, and
It's
from
like
there you get to choose.
like a sampler. I don't know, in America, if you go to Costco, it's like you get to kind of sample it. And Connor, sorry to interrupt here, but I think there are people here today that maybe watch like a Pixar or Disney and they go, I really want to do that. And it is sometimes hard. I remember when I thought the word animator, I sometimes thought that an animator meant that they made the characters. I really like kind of love to draw characters and make, and I'm like, oh, I get to sculpt the character. And so how does your class kind of help introduce some of the different jobs or roles?
Oh, well, theme wise, like, I think that's what you're referring to, but with the theme wise, I like to teach, in with analogy and practical uses of these tools in production. So the analogy I like to use is Intro to Maya is an adventure, and I'm just a crazy old wizard that is your guide, but you guys are the heroes. You guys are the people that are going through this journey and learning all these tools and about the production pipeline. And so we take that theme into the actual assignments themselves. Like, everybody knows that a hero has their trusty, let's see, do I have it? Yeah, a hero has their trusty, iconic weapon or tool or something. And so that's the modeling assignment. And we're taking the hero's trusty tool or weapon or prop or whatever it might be all the way through the production pipeline. So we'll model it, we'll rig it, and then we'll animate it, we'll put it in a character's hand, and yeah, and just
maybe help me understand too, because maybe some of this terminology is new. That's what's really cool about Intro to Maya is maybe people don't realize. Let's talk about this. So Maya is an industry standard 3D program where you can model an object like you were showing, like you could model that lightsaber. Rigging is where you could get that model to move or warp or do something. So that's kind of like, if I like to think of it this way, I don't know if you like to think about this, Connor. I like to relate 3D animation a little bit to Muppets, because I understand puppets, right? there are the people who perform Kermit and they make him talk and stuff. That's like the actor or the animator. They're making the puppet move. But there's somebody else who makes the puppet, that designs the puppet. That's kind of like the 3D modeler. And then you have kind of the rigger. That might be the person that makes like the eyes move and make sure all the joints work. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but like, could you explain maybe the difference
For
to
sure.
like a 3D modeler, a rigger, an animator? How are they the same and how are they different? And how do you kind of introduce those in your adventure? This is what you were kind of talking about. You're talking about how you're introducing. Maybe we can talk about that. So there's those different roles. And so Connor's created this awesome kind of adventure path to introduce you to those. So maybe we'll go back to that. So maybe how do you kind of introduce these different roles in that pipeline and what they do?
Yeah, the first thing is modeling, and you can think of it like the artist that works with the clay, or whatever medium, puppet, so maybe cloth, whatever medium. It's if you use real life as an analogy, and you're basically using math to turn these ideas into real life when it comes to physical assets. So we look from reference, we scour reference of different items. Maybe you start. Typically, you're given a piece, like a piece of art, and they're like, "All right, we're gonna turn this reference into a 3D asset." So it's a bunch of drawings or reference images, and so we use our modeling tools, and we start from a basic primitive objects, typically like a cube, and then we start to divide the cube and stretch it and mold it and turn it into the asset that then the prop that later gets rigged. So if we use a lightsaber as an analogy, like for the lightsaber needs to ignite, right? It needs to. I'm struggling here. It needs to ignite. So there's little lines of code and tools that you can connect together, and then the animator, once the prop is handed to the animator can grab that control that was designed by the puppeteer, basically the rigger, or not the puppeteer, the puppet maker.
Yeah.
And then the animator can ignite the lightsaber. So yeah.
And so then that rigger is creating a way for the animator to make it do what they want to do. They're able to like almost like add control points or things that make it do something. So the rigger and the animator like connected in that pipeline. They're not the same, but they kind of the 3D modeler looks at a drawing, makes the object, they pass it to a rigger. The rigger makes it so it can move and do stuff, and the animator has control so they can make it open and do things, or give it to someone, or give it to a character, and all those things. So I don't know if you want to share at what point you'd like to share your screen.
Sure.
But just that was a great example. I'm going to add this to your screen here. So
all right.
Yeah.
So we're going through examples, or would you like to do demo first?
Yeah, maybe go through examples and then we do a demo. So I think
awesome.
Kind of explaining what you do in the class, and then let's do a demo after. Kind of maybe introduce this curriculum and your adventure and your pipeline.
For sure. For this class, this is Kiara's work. For this class, so basically it's creating your hero's trusty blank. So the hero's trusty blank, you could take like an iconic prop from a movie, or you could come up with something on your own to kind of envision things. And so this Kiara here, let me just full screen this. I guess I have to hit play and then full screen. All right. So Kiara, she really got into the lore of her prop here. So it's a comb. It's a disguised weapon. And you can see all the different stages of production that she's learning. This is the rig. See, like the little lines drawn around it. Those are the things the animators grab to move around and attach to the character's hand. And 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 then these are deformers where the rigger can add different elements to make things. You saw like smear frames back there, where you can, when you whip the weapon really quickly, then there's a smear. It's like motion blur, and so you can add all sorts of things. Oh, and this is the render. So this is the presentation assignment. This is the oh whoa, I actually haven't seen this.
That's really cool.
Whoa.
So that's what's really cool. Connor, go back. This is what's so awesome is that to watch where you're kind of watching right there, stop right there, where you're watching like, oh, that's weird. Like, why are we making it look kind of rubbery? That's not what it would do. But seeing how it looks in the render, like how it gives that realism, right? Because when you see something move really fast, it does kind of do that blur effect, you know? And so it's so cool to see the rendered out one. Now maybe go back to that, see how that
for
looks.
sure. Yeah. So those are the smears right there. And then they render, and then here's yeah. So Kiara put some
oh, that looks so cool.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's such a cool.
So maybe for some context, this already looks to me like super complex and new. Has she had any 3D experience before this class? Or
yes.
So
Kiara does have some experience
before you come to class. What happens if you don't have any?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, the cool thing.
What if you're like, I love to draw, I love to paint, but I've never ever touched the computer? Is it a really scary thing to jump into a 3D program like this?
It is
expensive. Like, is Maya an expensive program? Like, how? Like, what if you don't have a ton of money for subscription fees? Like, how does that work? Like, how? Like, that's kind of scary. Like, I want to do 3D modeling, but I heard it's expensive, and oh man, I don't know if I can do this. It looks really scary. What would you say?
Well, when it comes to price, if you're a student, Autodesk gives you Maya, which is the tool we use, a student version of it. So all this work has been done on student versions, which is basically the exact same version as the professionals. It's just they're not allowed to go on and sell that work. So as long as you're using it just for studies, then you can show Autodesk that you are a student, and then you'll be able to download a special version so you can learn from that tool.
And here's something cool I want to say is that if you didn't know, AnimSchool is an accredited school, and therefore we are granted permission to give out student licenses to current students at AnimSchool. Literally, if you go on to the Autodesk site to download Maya, there's actually, if you look up schools that are qualified for you to have that discount, AnimSchool shows up. So that's a really cool thing. So if you sign up for Connor's class, you get a free educational license of Maya. So you don't need to worry about the cost of that. That comes with your coming to AnimSchool.
Yeah. There's all sorts of helpful tools and plugins that the school and teachers at AnimSchool point you in directions of really cool tools out there. But on the experience side, like, I know a lot of this is very daunting. Like, as a dyslexic person, seeing 3D animation is like, oh, I mean, it looks like playing with action figures, but is that too difficult for me to understand? Well, the good news is no, especially not for intro to Maya. We do this fun thing called like stretch goals, and that basically allows all of the students to do what is to do. Like, if you have experience in another program and you've been in 3D programs before, then we'll tell you to do assignments that are a little bit more difficult. But if this is the first time you've ever opened up a 3D program, it's not going to be super, super complicated. Like these like surface imperfections and stuff. Kiara has had experience in 3D programs before, so I encourage her to go wild with learning the surface imperfections and getting as much detail in there as possible, because it's really fun to learn when you're on like the border of what you do know and what you don't know. So let's see. I mentioned that a lot of students, weapons are the most common, but one of the coolest things we get from this is, let's see. Sorry, I'm just gonna go to. Oh, there he is. Vinesh. So one of the cool things is this assignment can be as hard or as easy as you want it to be. Like if you're like, well, I'm working a job, but I really want to learn these skills, you can make the assignment, oh, I'm gonna just make something like a household tool. But that still fits the theme of the hero's journey. Like, look at this assignment. It's like, okay, this is a screwdriver. We've all seen a screwdriver, but look how cool. Look how much lore, how much it's like, this is like a dad's tool in the toolbox, and he's fixed the car like a million times, saving his family on going to the mechanic shop. There's, especially in the surface imperfections, just showing how used and how well loved this tool is. So yeah, we have like pots and pans. We have, so it doesn't all have
you
to
don't
be.
Have to. So if you came and you're like you wanted, so you're saying they're gonna come to this class, they're gonna find like a common object, whether it's a weapon, a pan, a screwdriver, make it, learn some basic rigging, some texturing, lighting, and then they're gonna give it to a character to hold. Is that's kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
So you kind of going through all these different stages of what you'd need to do in that pipeline.
That is one of the most exciting stages of this of the new curriculum. Is we spend all this time bringing to life this prop and giving it as much character as possible, and then he's like, I just want to see it in someone's hand, and then we bring in Malcolm, which is AnimSchool's kind of mascot character. AnimSchool has lots of characters that in the further classes you get to use these industry standard quality tools or rigs. And then we get to put those props that you made into their hand and do like a little pose. So that's one of the funnest parts.
There's a question here that I think we both could answer. It's Lifefuck says, I have to be careful what I say. Do 3D artists need to be good at 2D too?
Oh, that is a good question. Like
if you were like, I'm not really great at drawing, can I still be a good 3D animator? Is that possible?
Well, sometimes I 3D animate so much that my drawing skills get a little rusty. It is definitely helpful, but the cool thing about 3D animation is it's that we also use like acting, and it's a puppet. So basically, I know a lot of animators, as long as you can draw a stick figure, like you can 3D animate.
I will say this. I asked an animator, a pro animator who worked at DreamWorks, who's fantastic. And I said, do you need to be good at drawing to be an animator? And he said, no.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons that drawing can help is that it helps you observe life. So if you were to like go on the subway, or you were going to watch people move, one of the ways that you can study people is to do sketches. And I think when you draw something, you have to look at something for a very long time. So I think even if you're not an amazing artist, one of the tools like the pencil, where people draw people from life, even if their drawings don't look amazing, it's a way for you to study movement, to study life. So even some of those artists say, oh, I'm not great at drawing. They are observing people, how they move, how they act. It's kind of like an actor is learning how to convey emotion, how to convey movement. So I would say even some animators who might not be great at drawing still draw.
Yeah.
Still draw, actually. So I think it's kind of like a loaded question where you use drawing, even stick figures, as an observation tool, because when you're drawing, you have to look at something very long. It doesn't necessarily mean the drawing looks amazing, but you could be learning about how things move or how the light hits. So it's kind of a loaded question, actually. And so, so we do kind of ask people to submit drawings and things when you apply, but it doesn't mean you have to be, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm not a really amazing artist, I won't get in. We want to see your drawings. We want to see that you're looking at stuff. It doesn't mean that you have to be some amazing artist to learn how to be a good animator. Is that true from your perspective?
Yeah, for sure. When I said, like, if you can draw a stick figure, you can animate, that's not diminishing the importance of drawing in the craft of animation. And what I meant by that is, like, for me, it kind of just changed my definition of what a good drawing is. Like people are like, oh, does it have to be like perfect? There's a term called gesture drawing, and that is what is like helpful, which is basically understanding. You can tell me if I'm wrong here, but like the two main shapes, or no, it's three: line, so straight, C curve, and S curve. So why I said drawing a stick figure you can animate is like a good drawing isn't a perfectly rendered thing. It's just looking at that and it's like, oh, that person is slouched. That means his body's in an S curve. So you're drawing outside. If you go out and draw people outside, you could just look over and just draw an S curve and be like two S curves, like an S curve for his body and an S curve for his arms, and be like, okay, that I can understand his emotional state right now, and I can understand his personality a little bit just from gesture drawing. So you don't, you don't need to draw it. You can also just remember that when you're posing things in 3D. But
yeah, I think that's right. It was like we're using that as a tool to observe. I think just like a good actor, a good animator is observing kind of the emotion, the weight. Like so much can be conveyed, because at the end of the day, and this is what I think Conor has done so well crafting this new curriculum, is really understanding story as well. Because even though we're just talking about like a simple object that you're going to create and model, as soon as you have an object interact with a person, you have a story, right? The object you choose has story built in. So it is really great to think that way. I think a good artist is a good storyteller. And so we want to have people come to AnimSchool that do have ideas, do have stories. And there was someone in the chat that said, what do you think about AI, sir? I know this is a very like influx time, and there's a lot of scary things where people go, oh, AI is going to replace artists. And I don't think so, because at the end of the day, if someone said, hey, I asked AI to write, mix all these different stories and make a book in 15 minutes, I would not be interested in reading that book. But when if there's an author who wrote something, I'm interested in reading that book. I am interested in art made by people. I'm interested in stories made by people. And a lot of the things that AI are going to do in the animation industry are replace a lot of maybe jobs that animators don't really want to do. So like the kind of job like Conor, I would imagine you'd want to do is probably like animating a scene to have that human emotion. And I do think like more and more there's AI that could maybe like do crowds or things that maybe are very like labor intensive that I don't think people want to do. But I think why people say, well, why go learn animation, is that you need to start from the very beginning to get all those fundamentals, get to a pro level where you're able to convey emotion, so that you can, even if AI was to do some of it, it needs a person who knows from the very beginning to a pro level how to take it to the next thing. And I'm going to give an example. This really scares people whenever there's a change. When we went from 2D animation to 3D, a lot of 2D animators, they didn't continue on because they didn't want to pivot to learning 3D. And that's fine. That it changes. That things are always changing. And there was a big change several years ago where animators got very scared. It was called motion capture. You've probably all seen the people wearing the suits, or the actors. Think about Golem, right? Like think about Andy Serkis. And I think a lot of people thought, well, we won't need animators anymore. But what they maybe don't understand is that motion capture needs a lot of cleanup. And the people that clean that up are pro animators. So if you have someone do like a big cool jump or like a cartwheel in a video game, and then they jump to a crawl, you're going to have maybe some actors doing some really cool tricks. But if you're going to take a cartwheel and then you're going to take like a somersault or like a cool swing, you're going to need an animator that's able to take those different kind of pre-recorded things and stitch it together and finesse it to look amazing. And what people were really scared of was that, oh, motion capture, animators' jobs are done. The opposite happened. What it made was where we had a video game where maybe you could have like 4 or 5 poses done by people. Now all of a sudden you had thousands of movements. And you know what that made is it made a whole new industry of animators that needed to be stitch animators that needed to clean that up. It actually increased the amount of animators needed. And so I actually think we're in flux right now, and it's really scary, but I actually think there's going to be a need for better animators now than ever. And the goal of AnimSchool is to start you in a Connor's type class to teach you to think like an artist, to think like an animator, so that when someone needs a really high level animator, that you know from start to finish how it works. Because you can have AI get you so far, but then they need pros. So what we want to do is train pros that looked at life, understand emotion. How many of you guys, I mean, in the comments, maybe we can say that, like, watched a Pixar movie or something that made you cry? That is because of the performances of those modelers and animators that made you feel something. That was made by people that made you cry. And that's what Connor's kind of talking about, is a taste in his class where you get to start with an object and bring that object all the way to kind of storytelling. It's the beginning. And even if you've never touched 3D before, you're going to touch a little bit, a sampler of that whole production pipeline, where you actually at the end of the class have something to show for it. You're going to be so excited to show your friends, like, look what I did. I guarantee if you were able to make that frying pan or that sword and you were able to get it to move and give it to a character, it's going to feel great. I mean, it's just super exciting. It's stuff I know you're like, how do they do that? You're going to get an insight into how they did that. It's really going to open your eyes to when you watch your next animated film, you're like, oh my gosh, I know how they did that. I know how they got them to hold that in their hand, in that character's hand. I did that. And so maybe Connor, can you talk, maybe continue, maybe show some of these other students that have been doing this?
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, we talk about AI forever, but I would say, don't, if you're a good artist and you are thinking as a human, I don't think you should be scared of AI. I think there's always going to be a place for people who can think and be a human. I think being human is super important and super needed. So I know that
if I could touch on that just like a little bit, I have a nice analogy for that. Or not analogy. A lot of times students get so excited and they want to make a really long project, and I encourage them, like, yeah, make a long project, but in a different axes. Focus on being as specific as you can. Keep it short. You can keep it short so you can manage it, because longer it gets, harder that it gets, because it's just like, I need a team at this point. So when it comes to becoming really specific about a character's choices and the context and the world and the lore and all that stuff, like, AI can't pull from human experience. It can't pull from your heart. You know, you're providing context that you have witnessed that AI can never witness. They literally can't see and feel. I'm calling it they. Isn't that weird?
No, because
anyway,
it's collective. No, but it's kind of like the thing is, an AI doesn't know what it's like to taste ice cream. Like,
exactly.
They never, no matter how much input you could say, oh, it's this or that, they've never experienced what that's like.
Yeah, prompts are not reality.
They're not
reality is real.
And it's interesting you were showing a screwdriver. I think AI could be misused. I think it could be used well. Like, just like that screwdriver. A screwdriver could be used to make something, but someone could take a screwdriver and like stab the side of a car or scratch it. Like, there's good uses and bad uses. And I think it is important to use AI as a correct tool or the right place, but never in an unethical way. I think that's maybe the thing we need to think about is, are we using any tool in an ethical way or in an unethical way? So I hope that helps a little bit. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't have that human experience, even though it is. I don't hate you know why I don't hate AI is because the stuff I'm seeing AI is a collective of stuff people made.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, when I look at it, it's like, oh, it has no humanity. No, I've seen really good AI that's made me feel something, but there was always somebody that was a person guiding it. And so if AI is used by a person in a good way, I think it can be guided well. And I think we can do more. I also want to say, I am okay. It's very funny. I'm sorry we're on this still. It's always a slippery slope of when you say what the cutoff is of when you can use a tool or not. Like, if I'm an artist, do I need to grow the tree, mine the graphite, make the pencil, make the pen? The paper is allowed to draw on it. Like, tools are interesting, and I think it's how you use them. You know, and I think I think people will always care about human stories. The other thing that's really interesting is, let's talk about AI. One more thing is, I don't know if you guys like chess, but it's been many, many years since a person has been able to beat AI chess ever. However, people still play chess and people still have chess tournaments, and we're excited about a person versus another person. We will never be able to beat AI ever at chess. A human will never be able to beat like the most advanced AI at that. But it didn't kill chess. So it's still going. We still care about like chess masters. So I don't know if that helps, but it's just different. All right, we'll move on from that. But yeah, it's a good topic, and it's one I'm excited about and scared still, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful.
Yeah. For sure.
So let me. Do you want to share? I'm going to share your screen again, and then I don't know if you want to open up another one of your students' work.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see here. Let's do Gus. Let's see, Gus. Yeah, let's go with Gus here. Yeah. All right. So, oh, cool. All right. Let's see here.
These are also cool. What I love seeing all your different students is how everyone chose their own thing. That's really cool. Is even though you're in the same class, everyone's not just doing the same thing. Everyone's kind of like put their own kind of creativity into their project.
Yeah. The cool thing about this presentation. Interesting. Okay, now it's working. Cool. The cool thing about this presentation is I was sitting here watching it and being like, why? There's something special about this. There's like this untangible thing that's like, there's something special about this assignment. And I wasn't sure what it was until I started talking to him, and he was like, oh, I have a background in photography and I take a lot of pictures. I work with cameras a lot. So when I was introduced to a virtual camera, which will be introduced to virtual cameras, it opened up a world of possibility that I never imagined. And so I was like, oh, that's it. That's it. So with that said, here's this one.
I just love how they show the wireframe and how it's all kind of made. It's very, very cool. It's like kind of behind the scenes of how something works. Oh, that's such a cool transition. Oh my gosh. They're using all their photography skills. That's cool. So someone who comes in maybe with a different skill set is able to translate maybe their art direction or their presentation into this. Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing for a class, kind of like a beginning class, to have that presented that way.
For sure. It's incredible. Everybody has like a different background. Like if you're like, oh, I had a background in theater. I did some theater. But this is, I'm learning about a program. The skill transfers, and it's wonderful. It's like, oh my gosh, I know what he's talking about here. I know how to do this. And then you start like, anyway, it's just awesome.
That's really cool. That's really cool. That's really cool. I love that.
Another one. Okay, let's see. Another one is, let's see.
This is just so cool because this is Connor's last term. It's just amazing how many different voices and ways of doing this. Like as you're showing these videos, everyone's presenting these a little different. So, oh, this is cool. So this is Luke Skywalker.
This is kind of funny. Is there music on that? I'm not sure. Okay, here we go. There is.
So they did titles and everything.
That's me.
That's so awesome. That's just that smear thing just gets me every time. I love it. So use the bouncy ball BB-8.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's such a classic assignment, you guys. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. And that's kind of what you're talking about. This is the first time we've seen this. So the goal at the end would be to take your kind of hero tool or weapon and then pair it with a character in a pose.
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of these are stretch goals where like he does the assignment, and I see he did the assignment. I was like, okay, and he's like, oh man, I wish I could do this, and I was like, okay, go ahead and do it then. And so like, if people are doing things, then I can see that they're getting stuff done, and they're like just curious, and they have that leftover curiosity. I'm like, oh, go for it. I send resources, I send different directions, and so yeah, a lot of my students have been doing things that I didn't expect. Like it's so cool.
And I want to say I like that you said stretch goals is just to give you some context about AnimSchool. Our goal is to train the next generation of 3D animation and 3D modeling professionals. So that is hard. What I'm going to say is that it is, even though Conor, you're making this really fun. Like you're giving them a lot of fun assignments, but it is work. Like this is not the easiest thing. But what I think Conor is doing is presenting it in a very like manageable, bite-sized way. But we will say, I'm loving your class because it's kind of giving them some preparation to what's to come in the program. So as you're touching on all of these different things, there's a choice to be made. So you've introduced them to some modeling, some rigging, some animation in a way, some animation, and then some rendering. But what that would be at the end of that is called a generalist. But at AnimSchool, we want you to focus on a specific kind of very specific type of skills. And so we have different tracks or programs. So at AnimSchool, we have what's called the 3D animation program and the 3D character program. And that's kind of the big thing for you guys to think about when you're in Intro to Maya is, are you more interested in the acting and performance side? If you really like making stuff move, or you really liked kind of action figures, you like doing stop motion, then you're probably more of an animator. You're probably looking more at that. If you are the kind of person that likes to, to draw or to make stuff out of clay, you really like character design, you really like to make stuff, you might be really great for the 3D character program. And there's kind of a unicorn here, which is if you kind of like both, or you're really technical, you really like coding, you really like tools, you really like to make stuff work. You're someone who likes to take apart like a watch and put it back together and make it work. That's a rigger. That's someone who's going to be a technical artist. So Conor, are you in your class, are you seeing people that kind of already know which path, or are you kind of saying, hey, like maybe someone thought I want to be an animator, and then they take your class, like, I really liked making that lightsaber, maybe I want to go do 3D modeling. Like, what are you kind of seeing?
Yeah, sometimes, a lot of times people move forward with what they thought they wanted to do, but sometimes I've had a few students where a lecture just opens their mind, and then they to something they've never even thought of before, and then like for instance rigging, and then they start rigging and they get so excited and they're like, I've never felt so I thought I want to be an animator, but this rigging stuff is so cool. And so that's another reason why I love the format of this class, is like a lot of these jobs no one knows about. Like no one, you just watch a movie and the thing you see is the modeling, the animation, and the render. So I guess people could kind of conceptualize that, but there's all these other career options that are fascinating and wonderful. And one of my favorite things about this class is, by the end of this class, whatever route you go down, you will watch movies differently. You will watch a 3D animated movie and you'll be like, and when someone says, how'd they do that? And someone says computers, you'll turn and be like, excuse me? No, not computers, artists. And yeah.
Okay, I really like this question. I'm kind of scared
sure.
Maya, because I am more of a Blender kind of person. Actually, it's great. If you did Blender, you're probably going to love Maya. I'm a Blender kind of person. I like to pose models and move them, but they kind of move like robots, and it can be confusing. So what would you say to someone who's like going, oh, like Maya is intimidating to me? Because it is. You open Maya, you're like, there's all these different, I don't know if you can open the Maya interface, but there's all these panels.
Oh yeah, for sure. Let's see. Yeah, Maya looks a little
Yeah, it looks a little like that's a little
Strange.
intimidating. Like, what in the world?
What is
But I
going
also
on
like
here?
I also like creating models and things in Blender, but it can come out crazy, but sometimes good. So someone who is, I love Blender, by the way. I think Blender is amazing, and I think it's come a long way. It's still not industry standard, and Maya probably is still more robust for animation. But I'll tell you right now, if you've been able to kind of figure out Maya, you're gonna love. I mean, sorry, if you already kind of been playing in Blender, I think it's an easy transition.
Yeah. Could I give an example of someone that dabbled? Yes, I'm sure. Pretty sure he dabbled in Blender. All right. Yeah. John, he's another student, another lightsaber. John here, he dabbled in Blender before taking this class.
Oh my gosh, he did so good. This is one of your like star students, honestly. So good.
So yeah, you can see that a lot of those skills obviously transferred. So if you learn something in, sorry, I'll just let it play.
So, I mean, for an intro class, this is just so amazing.
Yeah, he obviously understands topology. You know, I didn't go super in depth about topology, but he already knew that stuff. So all these skills, there's some universal 3D program skills that just copy over.
Someone said, "Why is Blender not industry standard software?" A lot of smaller studios are using Blender. I think it's becoming more and more. But I would just say it's still, in terms of like rigging and animation, it still has a long way to go. It's getting really good at rendering. It's getting really good at modeling. There's some things that Blender does so much better than Maya. So I don't think there's any kind of hate towards Blender whatsoever. I think they're both good. And I think what Conor was even trying to say earlier about, oh, computers made this. I will say I'm software agnostic. I think that what I mean by that is what is the best software for the job you're trying to do? And sometimes it's Maya, sometimes it's Blender, sometimes it's Photoshop, sometimes it's Krita. I mean, it doesn't, if you have the principles and the foundation. So if Conor's teaching you animation basics in Maya, a lot of studios have they have proprietary software that only they have, and starting off in something like Maya is a really good bridge to whatever else there is. So there's not really like, it's not really like a software war. I think it's more about learning one that's most commonly used like Maya, and it is very robust and works really great, and so that's why we use it.
Yeah, I've worked in a production. One of my first projects that I worked on, it was a Blender and Maya collaborative project. And from what I understood from my short-term understanding Blender, Maya, like if you go and watch a tutorial from Maya made 10 years ago and you try to do it on the current version of Maya, it'll work like 90% of the time. The tutorial will work. So I think the reason why Maya is the industry standard is because it's more of like a tool that never changes, that has a box where you can build your own tools into it. And that box is the coding feature of like Python and Mel, where there's so many plugins where you can have all these crazy things happen, but the fundamentals of the program don't change. And I think that's because people open up old files and then it doesn't work. Like that's happened with us with Blender. It's like, oh, and then we open this up. Oh, that was a old version made 2 years ago that no longer works in the new version of Blender because they kind of rewrote it from scratch. So for my limited knowledge, that's kind of why I think it's because the Maya is stable and editable.
Yeah, and I'm a meme guy, and there's some really funny memes about how awful Maya is,
Yeah.
But it really has improved a ton, and it is so robust. This is a really good question from Hari. Do I really want a degree for getting into an animation job? And I'm someone who has a 4-year university degree, and I learned a lot, but I got kind of a generalist education, which was awesome. Like I took intro to Maya classes. I took a lot of pre-production classes. I did like color. I'm more of a digital painter. Like I did color keys and concept design. What's so great about AnimSchool is we are not a degree giving institution. We are accredited. We are a certificate giving institution. But what really matters is if I was to go apply at a major studio and I said, hey, look at this. I graduated from such and such university, and look, I got straight A's. And then I show them my reel or my portfolio, and it's not any good. They don't give a darn about my degree. They do not care about the degree at all. But let's say, for whatever reason, I think a degree is great. I think being educated and doing that, I'm very grateful for my degree. However, there's no guarantee that just because you have a degree that you get a job. It's the work. So what we have designed the program to do, and even what Conor's doing from day one, is to teach you guys kind of like almost like a shortcut, not shortcut, but because our instructors like Conor are working professionals, they actually know the needs currently of the industry. And so we're going to give you an inside view of pay attention to this. This is what recruiters are looking for. We're going to give you real advice, get you really leveled up to the kind of stuff that they need. Like, we're always having meetings with professionals and with studios saying, what kind of candidates are you looking for? And so we are always tweaking our curriculum so that when you finish AnimSchool, you have a reel you can be proud of that you can apply to jobs with. And so that's what is so important. What Conor's doing from the very beginning in Intro to Maya is getting you set up for that. It doesn't mean that you finish this class and you go and apply for a job. Maybe like a small studio, you do your one lightsaber and they're like, that's exactly what I need. But we have a school where you can finish in 18 months, a little bit under 2 years, and be ready to apply. We've had people who have never done any 3D animation, and then by the end they have become Pixar interns. By the end, they literally have never touched a computer, have gone through, and that doesn't happen for everybody. That's someone who worked really, really hard. But we are very focused on getting you to be industry ready. And I think if there are worries about the industry, there are worries about AI. I think that talent always rises to the top, and hard work, and our goal is to get you prepared. Like, there's no guarantee, absolutely, and there's a lot of flux. But I think if you are concerned about the future, is to learn how to think like an artist, be a human. I think the days are gone where it's just like, oh, I just want to be a grunt animator. I don't think that's a good goal. I think if you're coming to AnimSchool, you have dreams and you have things to say, and we want to skill you up and introduce you to our network and to people like Conor and other really great instructors, and get you ready so that you can tell your story, so that you can be animating those emotions that make us feel something like you did in the theater. And so that is our main goal with AnimSchool. So the degree question is so good, but good grades without a good reel don't matter. What they care about is what it looks like. Conor, can you speak to that at all? Does it matter if you have a degree? Like, I love having I love my degree. I love it. But
for sure. I mean, to give a little background, like, I was just going to community college, taking art classes there, and I took what I did from the art classes and I brought that to AnimSchool, and I said, this is what I can do. They're like, yeah, come on and join us. So, and then that got me into the industry, working on projects like on Jedi Fallen Order. Like, I always loved Star Wars, and then I actually got to work on a Star Wars, sitting next to the coolest people ever. And that's the secret. Like, the Star Wars project is like, oh, neat, but that excitement dies. The thing that's exciting is like, I got to meet these people. These people are so interesting and so creative, and it's just such a wonderful experience. And when this school is like a living school, right? So I went to this school, I've been in the industry, and then I joined the school again as a teacher. And so now I'm giving perspectives of like, oh, I just worked this job and they're now doing this thing. So it's this thing that's now like the new cutting edge thing that I'm learning in the industry. I'm putting that into the curriculum. I am giving the perspective. I'm giving the, yeah. So
and that is exactly, so what Conor talked about is literally how our school is designed. And I loved, like I said, loved my education. I got a concept design degree. And no offense to my instructors, some of them have been out of industry 5 to 7 years. And what was happening 5 to 7 years in the animation industry might not be relevant anymore. And so by hiring working instructors, they can give you kind of live what's going on. And the other thing that's really cool that Conor mentioned was it is cool to work on like an IP like Star Wars or something at Pixar. But what's even cooler is getting to rub shoulders with animation greats. And maybe people don't realize this, the animation industry is actually pretty small. And it is such a nice industry. What I mean by that is the people in it are the best. Like I love animators are phenomenal. They're great. You're just gonna really like if you're gonna have coworkers, like having animators as coworkers, they're so collaborative and so creative and so supportive. I think sometimes when you get good at something, like sports, sometimes not all sports, but there's this like attitude sometimes. I need to be better than everyone. I want to be the best, and it's like I'm gonna crush my enemy. What's so great about animators in general is they want to lift you up. It's very much like a rising tide lifts all boats kind of industry. So if Conor's doing good, I'm excited. I'm happy for Conor. I'm not in competition with Conor. Like him doing better means that I can do better. We lift each other up. We work with our friends. It's a very soft skill industry where you don't come in and you go, I'm going to be better than Conor. I'm just going to be the better animator. We're not like that. We're like, how can I help skill you up so I can get better? It's a very much friendly and happy community. And every community has its ups and downs. And I believe like, you know, things get better and things get worse. But I think where we take care of each other in this industry in a really amazing way. So, I mean, you could pick, there's all sorts of things you can pick as a career, but what a cool one to be with. And also to sit down in a theater or to play a video game and to see your name in the credits or see your friends in the credits is the coolest thing. We have a private Discord where we have a humble brag shout outs. And one of the things we love to do in there is to screenshot the end of movies and video games and circle the names of AnimSchool alumni. It's just the coolest thing. It's so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really surreal to take a class and like make friends in the class, and then your friend gets a job and you're like, okay, like you have the feeling of like, oh, I kind of feel jealous, but it's like, but they worked so hard. I was right there with them, working with them. And then later, that friend reaches out and says like, hey, they're hiring animators. Do you want to drop your reel off? And then I get my job in the industry. It's like, oh my gosh. Like, it's really important to like lift each other up. Of course, you may have feelings of like, oh, geez, they're so clearly better than me. But guess what? You know what you can do? If you see someone that you feel like, oh my gosh, they have more experience, they're better than me, but then you're tasked with a shot, and then it takes two characters, and you run to them and say, can you help me shoot reference? And they're like, oh, definitely, yeah. And then we run to a room, set up a camera, and then we act things out, and you get to see why they're so good. And then guess what? You get better too. Because yeah, that's just
it's
that's the
so
funnest
cool.
part.
There's a really cool question here by Naomi. With all the projects that you've worked on, Conor, how would you balance the artistic creativity with the technical demands of working on film game production? Oh man, what a good question. How do you like keep your artistic integrity when you know there's needs of like a studio? Like how do you like maintain kind of your own autonomy in your artistic journey versus like serving the client? You know.
Well, so I use the analogy of the hero's journey a lot, and everybody, you know, you get into a studio and you're like, all right, I'm going to be the hero, and I'm going to animate the main character during the most emotional scene, and this is going to be awesome. And then you're handed a shot that is, you know, background characters, or, you know, just a quick reaction shot of someone just turning around, and you wanted to do something crazy with the turnaround, but it's like, no, just make it a normal turnaround. And so you're like, oh, this is not what I expected. But think of the hero's journey. Think about Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. You know, the classic line of like, he's like, oh, I want to go to, he's like, his uncle says like, do your chores. And he's like, oh, but I wanted to go to Tashi Station and get some power converters. And he's like, no, you can play with your friends later. He didn't even want to fight the Empire. He just wanted to go to the store and buy some stuff. And he's like, no, do your chores. And then he does his chores. What is his chores? Cleaning R2-D2. And at the end of the movie, the same droid that he was cleaning begrudgingly, he blew up the Death Star. So that's kind of how it is in the industry. And I tell my students that you know, scrub R2-D2, do a great job, and know that you are in the hero's journey. You're just in the beginning. And so you give that attention to detail, and when you're tasked these shots where you're like, I want the hero shots, but they're coming, but I'm gonna treat this shot with as much respect and pretend like this is the hero shot. And then the higher ups, they'll start taking notice. Is like, this person doesn't complain and he's crushing those shots that people rather not do. Let's give him some more interesting stuff. And then slowly but surely you get more and more interesting stuff. And then that is when and then that's when your personality and your artistic skill really starts shining. So you always kind of have to scrub the droid, but you're gonna blow up the Death Star eventually if you stick with it.
I think that's really cool. Is I do think we have to like earn our keep in a way, and I know that's hard, but it's also really exciting. I think that beginning, it makes me think of like when I was a kid and I first played Super Mario Brothers 1. And I really feel like our careers are kind of like a video game, and we have to be okay failing over and over again, not really understanding yet. If you first open Mario Brothers, you've never played that game, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go, oh, Mario moves left, he moves right, I push B and he jumps. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to run right into the first Goomba and die. And so if you said, oh my gosh, that was hard, I'm never doing that again, you'd never get past level 1, right? Like, and so every time you go a little further on that level 1, you're like, oh, now I got to jump, and you fall into like the pit. You learn like what the mushroom does, and it's exploring. And I really feel like being an artist is a lot like that. And the ones who are okay, like starting over and like, oh, getting better a little bit every little bit. I think that's kind of like going through the animation program at AnimSchool. It's kind of like a video game. You have to be hungry to get better, and to not be afraid when maybe you know a Goomba takes one of your lives away or whatever. And it's like, it's okay. Like, hey, even having someone who's next to you, like a friend, saying, hey, you got to click B to jump over it. That's kind of like having our instructor saying, hey, like giving you guidance. Like, you need to, there's a secret here. If you go here, there's a secret mushroom that gives you a extra life. That's what Connor's like. He's giving you these little like tips on these little secret things in the industry that'll help you survive longer and get better faster. Like, there's 100%, there's no like need, I think. AnimSchool is fantastic. It isn't for everybody. I think there's a lot of people who become animators without going to AnimSchool. But I think what AnimSchool offers is a curated look into what it takes to be an animator. It's kind of like a cheat code. Like when you're in Mario Brothers, where you're on level 1 and you go up the secret thing, and there's like level, world 4, 5, 6. I feel like going to AnimSchool is a little bit like a cheat code where you can just jump way ahead because you didn't have to go down all these weird paths to find out they were wrong. Like, we can really help guide you on what you're trying to do. And someone's trying to say, well, what track best fits me? And I think that's what's really cool about Connor's class is you get that sampler, and you're going to be like, I really want to be an animator. And then maybe when you're doing one of these assignments, you go, I really like this. And you're really good at it. And you're like, you know what? Thanks, Connor, for introducing this to me. And then you can kind of pick that path like the hero. You're like, am I going to go right to, animation, or I'm going to go left to, 3D modeling? And so that's why I think the Intro to Maya class is super important. And we have a lot of people who have already gone to like an art school or already have a degree. There's a lot of people who are like me who have a 4-year degree. And what I would say is treat AnimSchool like a finishing school. What I mean by that is you have a really good generalist education. You're good at 2D animation. You're good at concept design. You know a little bit of Maya. I'd say come to AnimSchool with a goal and say, I want a really good performance reel. And those students do the best because they know what they want, and they see AnimSchool as that really quick cheat code to getting a great reel, which is at the end of the day, you don't need good grades. You need a good reel. You need a good reel that makes an impression on a recruiter. That makes an impression. But the other thing you need, and this is another thing AnimSchool has, is in the animation industry, you need a good network. You need a good, healthy network of friends and colleagues. And we have that at AnimSchool. Not only are you going to be meeting really cool people who you're going to classes with that you get to interact with and get better with and help. You're going to meet people like Connor and others along the program who are working professionals that worked on movies you loved, that worked at Pixar, DreamWorks, Sony, that worked on the Hotel Transylvania, who worked on Frozen, who worked on Encanto. and you're going to be able to ask them questions in class. Like, what was it like working on the Encanto house? Like if you go to Intro to 3D Modeling, Luis Labrador, he's the head supervisor, environmental modeler at Disney. And he actually sculpted the first or modeled the first like version of the Encanto house. You get to interact with those kind of pros, and it's super cool. So Conor has been really gracious in showing us some of the stuff that you can do in there. And now that we've kind of been going for a little bit of an hour, Conor, would you, we can switch over. We have a lot, and we'll have a Q&A. There's a lot of really great questions in the chat that we'll address, but we also promised you a demo. Conor, can we kind of jump in, kind of give a demo? So for you guys who want to follow along, you already have Maya, like Conor's going to show you some really cool tricks in this demo. I know you can, even if I think there's still a way that you can get like a Maya trial. So if you want to give that a go, like we know we love people come to AnimSchool, but I know like not all of you guys can. We try to post a lot of free content on our YouTube channel, free animation chips. But hopefully this can be helpful to you if you're going to AnimSchool or not. So hopefully this can be something that's useful to you. So I'm gonna go over to Conor here. Oh, when you're ready, I can open up. Let me have your
sure. I'm actually downloading one of your references right now. Let's see. These are some epic photos. Sorry. Let's see. Yeah. Let's see.
Let's see. Maybe while you're getting stuff, I can answer some.
Yeah, for sure. Answer some questions. I got some awesome.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Someone asked this about AnimSchool. I have a question. If I complete AnimSchool animation program one by one and finish till advanced acting, will I call AnimSchool graduate, or will it take starting from Intro to Maya to Creature? So if you started from Intro to Maya and made it all the way to graduate, you're graduate. Yeah, I mean, I hope that answers your question. If you then went to like another track and you already took Intro to Maya, you don't have to take it again. So I guess if that's someone maybe saying if they switch from like maybe animation and then started to 3D modeling, you wouldn't have to take Intro to Maya again. No, you could just jump into the character track. We do have people that do both, but we don't actually have you do it at the same time. It is not like a normal university. If you take, you can't actually take more than one AnimSchool class at a time. Many AnimSchool classes, especially in the later, just to be fully transparent, an AnimSchool class is an intense 11-week course where it could take between 30 and 40 hours of work a week. So there's definitely have people who work and go to AnimSchool, but if you're going to AnimSchool, it's an intense kind of leveling up curriculum where each class in the animation program, you go through class 1 through class 7, and every one of those classes is pretty intense and designed in a way to get you leveled up to have some really good shots in your portfolio by the end in your reel. So Conor, let me know when you'd like me to share.
Yeah, for sure. We're ready to go.
So we're jumping, everybody. We're to the demo. This is the like tips and tricks portion. Thanks for sticking around. Here we are.
Awesome. All right, everybody. We are going to
my daughter took this picture of me as I was on my way out to the studio.
Great photographer. Great photographer. All right. So let's take a look at this. So Jesse here is doing a nice lightsaber for me and a nice lightsaber pose. And I'm just going to do a quick demo. So let me line up the camera angle, kind of get like the rule of thirds here. Let's get the crosshairs going. There we go. Let's see. I'm going to have it be like a mid shot. There we go. All right, cool. So now, let's see. Let's bring in the picker as well. So this is the AnimSchool picker.
Like a picker. So for those who don't know, what is a picker? Like, what are we looking at right now?
Yeah. So this is a rigged asset. This is a rigged character. You see all these controls. It can get a little distracting.
I'm going to be really annoying. So tell me what a control is. Like, what is a control?
Oh, right. So, okay, yeah. So a control is what makes our puppets. So you can grab it and bend it like an action figure.
Think of that. So this character is called a rig or puppet. Yeah.
So yeah, these are controls. And this is our characters have all these different controls in it, and they all do different things. And there's like face controls as well. But say if I'm like this, right? I can't grab the control on the other side. So the AnimSchool picker is this awesome tool that that the students get to use, where you can lay out these controls in like a two-dimensional flat button. So no matter where your camera is, you can still grab that control. So it's just a helpful little tool, a little plus of coming to the.
Can you show how that works? So like, let's say like you were saying, you were really close up to that character named Malcolm and you want to grab the right hand, but you can't see it. Like how do you grab that?
Let's go in and I'm going to open up the picker here. Let's see. Let's see. I'm just going through files right now. So let's see. I'm going to do these two files. All right.
So you have two kind of views open right now too. Okay, so you see that. Oh, that's awesome. So you see that, is it like the 2D version of what you're talking about? So what are those little boxes?
Yeah, so these boxes are just like little buttons, the two-dimensional. So I can't see that arm. It's at a pose where I can't grab that arm. So instead of having to constantly, which we do move the camera a lot, but it's very, very easy just to grab the arm on the other side and then boom, you can pose it out. So I got my picker here, and you can just double click it and it snaps to the side. And yeah, so we can start posing out our character. So I'm going to do a mid shot for time, even though it would be so epic to do a full body shot. And you can see kind of this has like a strong it's kind of an S curve. There's a lot of curves going on here, but there's like a C curve going this way, and then like an S curve coming here too. So it's just seeing the different curves to make, and then there's like a C curve for the arms as well. So it's just knowing where the weight is and the line of action kind of tells you a lot about the character. So yeah, let's see. It's kind of funny to have Malcolm be our Jedi because he's a very nerdy looking guy. But yeah, so first let's get the lightsaber in here. So I'm going to grab this lightsaber, and first I'm going to scale it down a little bit just to match the size. I'm going to do a one-handed pose, even though there's two up here. I'm going to do, so we shoot reference sometimes of a pose, and then from there we work off of it. So we deviate from the pose eventually. But it's a great starting place because it's, instead of trying to design every little thing, you can just take some pictures or videos and find something funny or something that has a lot of personality, and then just use that as reference. And yeah. Let's see here. So I'm going to put the lightsaber in his right hand. So I have it scaled down, and then I'm going to just rotate it over here, move it into his hand. Oh, it looks like it's still a little bit too big. So I'm going to scale it down a little bit more.
I do want to say, if you didn't know this, so Malcolm is the most downloaded free rig or character at 3D Puppet in the world, and you can I posted a link where you can download Malcolm. So this isn't like something that you have to go to AnimSchool to use. A lot of people, before they go to AnimSchool, they actually will play around with the system that Conor has here with the picker and Malcolm. There's YouTube videos that you can also look up on how to get this set up if you're having trouble. So just want to let you know, like, everything that Conor's doing here, you could, if you had Maya, would be able to do. This isn't something that you have to go to the school to have access to. Just letting you know that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know it's the most downloaded. That's awesome.
Yeah. If like a free character, it's the most downloaded one. Yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys noticed that, but I even scaled down Malcolm's hands a little bit. So that's something. Normally you don't do that in the industry. You want to keep it on model, but But like when you're using these, you can like his hands just looked a little bit too big for these purposes, so I just scaled it down a little bit. That's something that the rigging artist provides tools to allow that to happen. All right. So I got the prop lined up, and this is John's Count Dooku lightsaber from episode 2. So now that we have it lined up generally in his hand, we're gonna grab the bigger control. There's a bunch of nested controls here. We're gonna take the biggest control and we're gonna constrain it, which basically is a tool that that you use to animate props. It does a lot of things, but you can animate props going from one hand to the other, to one character to another. You can constrain a prop to like a car. It's just endless applications for this simple tool. So I'm just going to open up this constraint here, and let's see. I'm just going to grab his IK arm.
So just so we're aware, like what is, when you say IK arm, what does that mean?
Oh yeah, that's another cool thing. This is a rigging thing. Let's see. So I just constrained it so it's to the IK arm, but I'll use the legs as an example. The legs right now, like all controls have the IK FK switch in it. That's usually pretty standard.
So what does IK mean? What does FK mean?
Right. Okay. I'm gonna.
Sorry about that. I just, for people who are new, they might not know what that is.
For sure. Yeah. I'm gonna embarrass myself because I think they're math terms. I don't know. It's forward skinematic. Good. I do this in class all the time. Forward skinematic and inverse skinematic. Yes.
I think you're right. Yes.
I am not good at pronouncing that word for some reason.
Well, that was cool how you made him bend his knees like that. That was cool.
Yeah, for sure. So basically what it is, forward means like an action figure, like each arm or each control bends in a forward way. So that means when you grab this one, when you grab this one and move it, all of them move with it. So that's FK. Where IK it's more like a puppet. So you move one control and then the middle one kind of just moves by itself.
It'll kind of know, like if you had like an action figure in real life, right? And I held a toy and it had those bendy pieces, it would bend its legs, right?
Yeah. And the practical purpose of this is like for IK, if you have a character's hand on a table and you want it to seem like it's just staying there, then like you want his feet to be on the ground. So the IK is good for walking because
making sure it just can't go through that floor plane.
Yeah, I'll give an example. Let's see. Let's
grab that's what you're saying by constraint. It's like these mathematical things that say make the rig or character stop here.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can, I'm assuming you also have the ability to turn him into a ghost and like make him break through where maybe you wouldn't want him to.
You can see the bones of the IK control are still active here. So these controls are great. You can like pose them out and everything, but it's gonna look like it's gonna break through the ground. So
if he was sinking in quicksand, you could make it look like that. Yeah, like he's going, melting through the floor.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's basically IK. It gives you it's like an advanced tool. Like FK is easier, or FK is easier to set up. So a lot of people are like, I'm going to use like IK because it's more advanced and it's more interesting. But IK has a lot of advantages, or FK has a lot of advantages. You get a lot of free motion, like you get a lot of good arcs, and so yeah, there's pros and cons of each one. And AnimSchool classes teach you like when to use FK and when to use IK, and kind of give you the language. As soon as you're assigned a shot, you're like, oh yeah, okay, IK legs, FK hands, and then at this point I'm gonna switch it over to IK. So yeah, so
kind of in this demo you're showing us just some pretty basic like vocabulary that if you were opening this for the first time, right? If you go down this, you're going, how in the world do I get this character to look like, if you took a picture of yourself like my daughter did of me with that broom, like how can I make this character that's not posed, how do I make it look like this? So you're kind of giving us a posing demo.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell me a little bit about that screen on the left. What's the difference between the screen on the left?
Oh, for sure.
And the screen on the right? Like the one you're working, you're kind of working one. It's kind of like if you're a stop motion animator, you're kind of like moving around the set, moving pieces around. And then what is the one on the left?
So the one on the left is the shot camera.
Uh-huh.
Let me just turn off the curves real quick. Let's see. Curves. Okay. Oh, that's weird. The ears are still on. Anyway, we'll leave those. How do you get those off? I guess here. One here and let's see. See polygons. There you go.
So what are you doing right now, Connor?
I am trying to turn off and turn on certain parts of the rig, but I am struggling because I just switched over to a newer version of Maya and they added a feature here. So let's see. I'm just trying to turn off the curves. Oh well, it's all right. We'll leave the curves on. So yeah, this is the shot camera. This is the camera where you kind of line up what your shot you want it to be. It's like, okay, I want it to be this close up here. And this is kind of just the posing perspective camera. So,
okay. So like the viewer, if you're to like make a movie or render it, that is the one on the left is how it's going to look compositionally, everything.
Yeah.
This is kind of your working camera. So
yeah,
you'll see how it look. Yeah, that's cool. So you can see if you move something there in your camera shot will look like that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a let's see here. This is like your window into the world. Mm-hmm. And this camera is like the camera that's going to be rendered. So this is kind of how one of the workflows that animators use. And so I'm just posing out a pose here. And I'm just looking at the line of action and the posture. And you can select multiple controls at once and kind of rotate it, like the spine. And then he's kind of leaning back a little bit. Let's see. Back. See, he leans back, but his head is leaning forward because he's in an epic fight stance here. You can see his head is rotating. What I like to do is let's see if we can change. Let's see. These are just viewport color controls values where you can add 1.5. There we go. So sometimes a character comes in a little bit too bright or something. And so it's just easier to lower that a little bit. All right. So let's grab that. Down. So you kind of just go through, and every animator has kind of a different way of doing their shot, where some like to start at the hips or something, and some start at the face. So everybody has like their own language that they do. Let's see. Let's get a good head angle here.
I do see one fatal flaw with my pose versus yours is that if your character is holding on to the lightsaber part, my left hand is gone.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
maybe
for sure.
Maybe it would be like more that what was it, like that spear, but no, this works still. But that was just funny. I was realizing that I was like, oh no, I'm gonna be holding on to that.
Well, cool. Yeah, well, let's talk about that. This is where you can take a piece of reference and you're like, this is great reference. That would look like a really cool Jedi. So I want to, but I can't have that because you'd be grabbing on the blade.
So you're like, so you're using reference just as a maybe just for some postings, but you don't have to follow it perfect.
Yeah, you can deviate. Like
that pose, I don't have to do exactly like that.
Like, for instance, there's a nice twist in his body here, in his spine. So it's like, how about I have him throw his arm behind him? And then that would give him a cool line of action in the opposite direction here.
And that
So
helps with that helps with your silhouette.
yeah,
That's great.
so you can.
So in a way, this just almost feels like you're kind of slow motion, like posing an action figure, like
Yeah.
you would with a toy, right?
Yeah. So yeah, you basically just block in a bunch of key poses, and that does take some time. It takes some time to do that, but once you have your key poses in, then you start going into your breakdown poses, and it starts becoming a more faster process from there.
So I was going to say this. So are you saying I could just make a bunch of main poses, and would the computer just like blend them on their own?
There
Like
is
if I like
interpolation.
did a pose like this, and then I did a pose like this, could I just like push a button and have the computer do this for me?
Yeah, I mean, this comes in with the whole AI conversation. Is when 3D started happening, and they realized that there was 3D like mathematical interpolation between two poses. Um, Everybody's like, oh, well, that means that you don't need an artist because the computer can do it. But the computer is just using math, so it only knows like ease in, ease out, linear motions. So the artist has to go in there and make the artistic decisions of like what type of motion happens
Okay.
between these poses. And
And,
so
yeah.
the artist's hand is in um in there a lot.
So Connor, let's say like you pose this guy like this, which is just me, and then you do another pose like this, and you made the computer like do that. Would it look good enough, or would you need to massage it to look more natural? Would the computer do a good enough job where it felt natural for me to move, or like how? Like if I have an extreme pose all the way here, and then I'm going way down here, like how many like key poses do I need to make so it doesn't look weird?
Usually it's like what we do is like we have the storytelling key poses. So basically, every time a character expresses an emotion, you pose that out. Every time a character like touches the table or grabs a prop, it's like, okay, that's a beat. That's a storytelling beat. So we do our storytelling key poses, and then from there we figure out, all right, well, how do we make these poses make more sense? When you click play, it will make sense, but it will be kind of choppy. So you need to go in there and add like the story in between the story. So it's like, okay, so he went from being happy to being angry. So it's like, okay, what motivated that? And so there's all sorts of different different poses that you add there. And that's kind of what's the term called? That's pose to pose animation, rather than straight ahead. Where straight ahead is like stop motion, where you pose every single pose, one pose at a time. But with 3D animation, you kind of find, well, and 2D actually. This was invented when doing 2D animation. You can start with the first pose and then the last pose and kind of figure out what beats are happening.
Yeah, and a lot of times what people don't understand is in 2D animation, you'd have like a major animator, like we say someone who's like a really good animator is like animating Jafar, right? And he would draw the key poses, and then he'd have a team of artists called in-betweeners. They would be artists that were pretty good, but they would help fill in those frames of the lead animators. So this is like a history lesson, right? Like if you had a Jafar doing this and then going to here, you'd have that main animator do those two really amazing drawings, and then they'd give them to a different team of people that would fill in those in-betweens. And so what's cool about Maya and then 3D animation is that Connor can do those key poses, and the computer through math does those in-betweens. But then Connor can also go like, those in-betweens look a little bit weird. And so that's what we call like polishing. That's when an animator can go in and really like massage those things. And when we were talking earlier about stitching those motion capture shots, that's kind of what they do as well, where they have a lot of that pre-recorded animation data, and then the animator can go in and make it feel natural and real. And that's where those like fundamental skills that you learn at AnimSchool can really help you, because you're like, well, what's the point of, if AI can do this stuff, like what's the point of learning it? Is because AI can't get it to that last 10% that makes it magic, right? Like if you saw a really cool like Avengers film, just think if they took all the special effects out. Think about if all the people, all the actors, they were on the green screen and they acted all their shots, and then those artists didn't come in and add all those things at the end that just made it magic, or like it made an explosion bigger. Like that's where the artists are really needed. We need that last 10%. Seems like a little bit of a shot, but that last 10% sometimes can take 90% of the time. That's where the like pro animators and the pro artists come in, is they can take something that looks pretty good and then turn it to something that's magic. And so that's what's cool. We love we love technology that makes things faster, right? Like that's what this picker does. It's a tool. Like if you were to try to chop down a tree with your hand, it'd be pretty hard. That's where you then, as people got better, they made an axe, and like compare an axe to a chainsaw. So that's what's great, is there's the technology is always getting better all the time. But at the end of the day, the artist is the one making the choices. So that's the really tough conversation we keep having about AI, because in some ways, this is the computer. This is intelligent, mathematics that we're working with. Or like Conor said, why we like Maya so much is, let's say there's something you really want to do and there's no tool for it. What's cool about Maya is you can write the code to make that happen. There's a lot of technical artists that are always solving these problems. Like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if the computer could do this? And that's what's cool about what Conor's saying, is he's in the industry seeing people are coming up with new, faster, better ways to make things look a certain way. Or, if you go back and watch like Monsters Incorporated, one of the things that was really hard at the time was to make 3D hair. Then you had a character like Sully. It was almost like they put that big hairy character in there just so they could challenge themselves to make hair look a certain way. And you had to have technical artists write code to make that happen. So it's always exciting. It's always new stuff that they're figuring out. So even Conor, where you're like going, hey, I just updated and they moved this thing. That's the hard part, is you can't just sit there. You have to always be learning. So if you want to be an animator, if you don't like learning new things, this might not be the right thing for you, because it's always getting better. It's always changing. So if you like learning new things and you like staying on top of stuff, like animation's a great career, because it's always changing. It's always improving.
It's never boring.
It's never boring. Sure. It's never boring.
It's like,
sure.
Wait, they changed what? And
they changed
like, why did they do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like fun. It's not like playing video games all the time, but there is definitely a craft to it. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Camille asked a really great question. So can I start my education with 1, introduction to 3D animation, without 0, introduction to Maya, or not? So this is a great question. There's a lot of people who don't take intro to Maya at all. Like for me, for example, I took a Maya class at my college. And so what you do when you apply is you apply with a reel or portfolio. So let's say you're an animator, you've been doing animation for many years, you can actually apply and bypass classes, which means you could actually finish the whole course of AnimSchool sooner. This is sometimes a sore spot for people. We take it very seriously. We have a review board which reviews every single application, and we look at your reel and we place you based on where you are skill wise. And to either you need to take intro to Maya all the way up to like you can start in class 4. So that's really important, and to make sure that you're showing what you can do, and we do take it very seriously as the review board. To make sure you're placed in the correct place. So yeah, if you already know Maya and this is something that you feel like you could bypass, that you have these skills already, then yeah, for sure, you do not need to take this class. But if you have no 3D experience at all, you're going to need to take intro to Maya. If you say, oh, I don't want to take Maya, if you've never touched a program before, you probably need to. I have seen some people who are so good at Blender that they have bypassed, but that I can't speak to that specifically. So I think the best thing to do is to just email admin@animschool.edu, and you can send your reel or what you've done, and they can help you know where you should be. Already, that's looking so cool. Like I can see myself in there.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's get a good close look at your facial expression. That's gonna help.
Good. Yeah.
There we
go. Really need that furrowed brow.
Oh yeah. You got to get that in there.
Look at that. That's intense. Man.
You're an actor.
Look at that! Look at that nostril action.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna get that in there. Let's see. Let's get the nostrils going.
I don't know if that's a Sith face or a Jedi face. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
I smell something funny.
I'm a Sith in this one, I think.
Yeah. Well, you're holding Count Dooku's lightsaber, so you're
Yeah,
definitely
so
bad.
either I'm a Jedi that took it from him, or oh yeah,
For
probably
sure. No, let's go with that story. Let's keep it positive.
that.
You
I'm gonna be
have
the good guy.
disarmed a Sith,
Yes.
and you're going to
Yes.
be.
Yeah. This is a righteous indignation here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, battle faces are always intense. Good guys
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
look
If
like
you're a
this.
good guy or bad guy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
like focusing on more of the hero, but
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. It was really funny when I was a teenager. This will date me a little bit. They had these PC games, these kind of flight simulator games called X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, or like X-Wing or like TIE Fighter, these games. And a newer one was like the TIE Fighter game. And my mom got me the X-Wing game because she's like, well, that's the good guys. I'm like, but it's older, because she didn't want me to play as the bad guys.
oh, that's funny.
So I couldn't
Yeah.
go near a game because it was from the perspective of the Empire, and and so I had to be the good guys. I thought it was funny. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Yeah, but with make believe, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
That's
I like
definitely.
that pointing pose. That's really cool. So when you're posing hands, like so maybe talk about this, Connor. This just seems like, this seems like a lot of work. Like, wouldn't it be easier just to have like pre-made poses? Like, why can't we just have like a library of like, I'm sure people have figured out every single hand pose. Like, why can't I just like click on a button that's like, hey, I want the rock and roll symbol. I want to pose that. Someone's made that. Why do I need to do that? Like, why can't Connor? Why can't you just give me like a library of poses for me to click a button that's like rock and roll, or like,
oh yeah,
like why can't I just pick like, hey, show me all the angry faces, and I push an angry face. Why are you having to do this manually? Why? That seems dumb. If people have already like figured out every single expression possible, why can't I just be a button pusher? Why should I hand do all this? This is dumb. I'm not saying it's dumb, but like answer me that way, you know?
For sure. No. Yeah. There is a tool that we bring in called the Studio Library right here. Let's see what pops up.
So it's like a pose library.
Yeah. So
like,
we have
why wouldn't you just do that at the very beginning? Why couldn't I just use that at the very beginning? Why do I need to learn how to do it manually?
Being specific, you can just we use those tools for like a studio where everybody's trained and everything, and there's like different character poses, and it's just to save time. But to learn it, you have to learn to be able to make those poses to put on the library. So if you're coming from scratch, going to a photograph or a drawing that you see interesting and going in there and manually posing out every single thing will just help you understand what's going on under the hood. And then from there, eventually you can get into a studio environment where you're saving time by saving out poses and different stuff like that, or using motion capture. But it's just learning the fundamentals. And with animation, there's 12 fundamentals of animation. I'm going to embarrass myself if I try to list them.
Hey, I'm not going to embarrass myself either, because I forget them too. I need to remember.
Yeah. If they become muscle memory, like the principles become muscle memory. And so we're kind of we're balancing the bridge between technology and creativity. There's fundamentals where it's like, some people will be like, oh, wow. Like, how did you, for instance, like, how did you get that facial expression? What tool made the facial expression? It's like, well, geometry and joints and controls, but how I got that facial expression is studying a facial expression, you know? So there's a difference between technology and art, observation and innovation. So, yeah. So yeah, this is getting close to a final pose here.
Because we're going to be going to like a Q&A section, but like in terms of like this demo, if they wanted to do it, like I said, go to the AnimSchool site, animschool.edu, and there's you can click on the AnimSchool store and you can download this rig for free, and you can go to Maya and download a trial. So you can go to Autodesk Maya, download a trial, download this picker, like what Connor's done. Connor, could you maybe, after we do this, can you maybe as a tip show people how to get that image in there? So maybe that would be really nice is, let's say someone wants to do this demo at home and they're like, how the heck did you get that picture in there? Would you be willing to give that as a demo?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Let's finish this first. But let's just, for our viewers at home or people who watch the recording and they want to go, make a cool Star Wars pose, like maybe there could be a little tip on how to get this set up.
Yeah. So two main things I would like to show you with that. This is pretty close to being done. Normally we never ever touch the camera after we finalized it, but I'm just gonna nudge it over just for a better rule of thirds situation. There we go. Rule of thirds is basically dicing your composition in thirds, and you want the eyes or the focal point to be close to the thirds line, if not on it.
Because it's like that top line and that side line, the eyes are right in this. Like right now, I'm in the right here. If I put my head right here, I'm in the rule of thirds right now on my screen. I'm not even showing that, but like, let's see. So if I go right here, I'm rule of thirds right now.
Trying to get the reference out of the way. There's a way to do this.
Yeah.
Let's
so if someone wanted to do this, you download a trial for you download a trial for Autodesk Maya. You take a picture of yourself, obviously. I would recommend actually filming yourself and screenshotting your best pose instead of like, I told my daughter, just film me. And then I went through and screenshotted key pose moments.
Yeah.
And then.
For sure. I guess, sure, let's start with the image. With the image, you go to View. This is called your viewport. So you go to View and then go down to Image Plane. And then you have two options to bring in a movie or an image. In this case, you just bring in an image. You click on that and let's see. Yes. And then it will bring up your, it will open up a file and you can go find that image.
So if it was on your desktop, you'd open that image and it would just pop in right there, like where you have it.
Oh, right. You just select it and then you
click
hit open and then boom, it's right there.
And then so how do you move it around? Like, oh, it's too big or it's too small. Like, what would you
do? Sure, yeah. There's size. You kind of marquee select these two controls right here, and then you can hold down Control and Shift. If you just do it without it, it kind of moves fast. But if you hold down Control and Shift together, you can get a nice slow movement. And then
how do you move that image around? Like if you didn't like where it was,
right? So it's like a middle mouse click drag.
Okay.
And then you can go to offset, and you can move it off to the side here, and then you can move it up. And
either manually or you could put in a numerical input in those spots.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can type in a number if you got a specific one.
Okay, awesome.
So you got that one. So now we have two pieces of reference there. You can have multiple pieces of reference. It's really helpful. And then to bring in the character, a lot of times people think you just go straight to import, which you can do that. But a better thing to do is use a reference. Import brings the file actually into your scene. And so every time you save it, you're like duplicating how heavy that file is.
Okay.
Where a reference, if you click on reference, create reference here, which is you go to file at the top file menu, and then you click on reference here, and then it'll open up your scenes folder, and then you can find the rig, which is just a Maya file.
And so you would get this rig from, you don't have to use the AnimSchool rig. There's lots of free rigs, but if you got the AnimSchool rig, how would you find that? If you downloaded it?
Well, wherever you saved it, there's a cool feature in Maya where you can create a project file. So if you go here, oops, that's setting a project file. If you go up here, project here. Oh, it opened down here. You can create a project file, which will basically give you default folders.
Okay.
So when you pull assets off the internet, like rigs and stuff, you can put it in the scene folder, and then.
So if you got the Malcolm rig, you'd put it in the scene folder.
You could put it in scenes and assets. I used to do assets, but one thing that I noticed, if you just go and open up your create reference, you just open it up, it automatically goes to your scene folder. So it's like, I might as well put my rigs in the scene folder. I just put them in files.
Just for ease, just to be a little faster.
Yeah, I should look into if there's a way to change that. I haven't looked into that.
Not a bad idea, where it's just it just depends on how you like to organize your folders. But
Yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah, then I made a folder, and then I put the Malcolm. There's also a free female version of Malcolm, which you can also get off the internet, which is basically the same exact asset, except for someone uh, kind of
Change that.
modeled it a little differently to make it look more female. Um, but yeah, so then you just click that. Let's see, where is the Malcolm? Yeah. Okay. Then you reference, and it takes a little bit because it's loading in a character file. So it takes a little while. There's a lot of controls and stuff. So
because Malcolm is a pretty it's a cinema quality rig. Like
yeah,
that maybe people don't really like in AnimSchool when you start, we actually start you off with blockier rigs that are a lot simpler. But Malcolm is it's a robust rig. So it's not necessarily the easiest thing to start with, but it is kind of fun to start playing around with Malcolm like an action figure. So hopefully this is inspiring you guys to try this out. We're like, hey, you'll learn so much just by opening this up and kind of playing around with those controls that Connor was showing you. But I think having a goal of posing yourself, opening this up, and try to match your pose is such a good, you'll learn so much just by doing that. And what's cool by taking Connor's class is just that he'll show you step by step how do you get to that point of touching kind of every part of these pipelines all the way to kind of rendering your scene. So that's what we offer in the Intro to Maya classes is really giving you step by step how you get to a pretty cool little video like you saw the other students do. And the other thing that's great is you get to ask questions, right? Like you get to try this stuff out. Let's say you miss something. This is a great chance for you to get live feedback. AnimSchool classes, you're not just watching a recording. You actually get to be in class with your other classmates over Zoom. That's what we do it in. And so your classes are recorded so you can review your feedback from Connor, from other instructors. It's really an amazing system where you get live feedback, you can ask questions, you can rewatch your critiques, and it's just a really fast way of leveling up. And so we just want to make sure that you're getting the instruction you need, the support you need, and 100%, I've seen people learn how to animate on their own, but I do feel like this is a really great cheat code, or having a buddy or a friend that's kind of like leading you along the way with your other friends. It's really cool.
It just provides some structure. It gives a little bit of structure to your learning. It's helpful to have some sort of structure because when going through like YouTube tutorials by yourself, just like not even knowing the terminology of like what do they call it, and it's hard to find, but like there's a curriculum, there's a structure, there's a method, and there's also some flexibility in it for people that they are really taking on to it and want to do a little bit more. So yeah, it's a really cool thing. And like the recordings, there's they have the YouTube to play 2x speed. You can change how fast. So if you watched it and you're like, oh, I didn't write it down. What was that one thing they said? You should try to write it down. But what's that thing he said? Or you just want to watch a part of the lecture again because it's like, that was really helpful. I just need to see that one more time. You can watch it at like 2x speed or whatever it is. And I'll sound like a mouse, but it's just a really cool way no, it doesn't change the pitch, but it sounds funny.
So, yeah. So what's great about this is I had a traditional brick and mortar. Like I went to a university where we went into classrooms, and I'd have the animator instructor. He would have be taking notes on like a whiteboard with pen, with like a marker, or doing sharing his screen from a projector. I'd be all the way in the back of the room, and you can maybe even see here where Connor's touching buttons and stuff. And unless Connor's saying every little thing he's doing, it's kind of hard to see always. And what's great about a recording is you're like, how did Connor do that? And you could literally go watch a recording and put it on slower speed and be like, oh, Connor touched this, then he touched this. It really is such a benefit maybe that we forget sometimes, is being able to watch a recording of something. But also when Connor's giving you a critique, if I was getting a critique in school, I had to take notes with my pen and paper of what the instructor was saying. And I still think it's good to take notes, but how cool that you have a recording and you could listen to it. Literally, I'm not getting it, and listen to what Connor told me 3 or 4 times until I understood it. So that's what's really cool, is where you're getting a personalized critique. You can review your critique really understand that. And then if you still don't, it doesn't make sense, you get to meet with Conor, the next week and say, hey, even though you gave me that critique, I really got stuck here, and he can help you break through. And as you see from the work from Conor's students, from all different backgrounds, from all different skill sets, they all created something unique and beautiful with those assignments. And I thought that's really the proof right there. Is what I think, if you, any school you go to, doesn't matter if it's AnimSchool, a brick and mortar or something, I think it's always good to see, what do the students actually get, or what do they make? What do the reels look like? I think it's good for everyone to go online and be like, watch the student reels, watch the student showcases, and see if it's the right fit for you, and see if that's the kind of animation you like. There's lots of different styles of animation. We're very much like a performance style school, the kind of like Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, Spider-Verse, those kinds of things. Like a lot of students have worked on those films. So that maybe that's not your style of animation. That's okay. But for those who that's the kind of animation you like, where it's the character-driven performance, like AnimSchools are really, I can just say, just watch for yourself. Make up your mind on your own. And I am gonna let you know, 2025 is a good time to get started to take Conor's class. We are taking applications until January 30th. So head over to animschool.edu and take a look at what we have to offer and see if it's right for you. You will need to be over 18 to join the class, and you need to have, or like a GED equivalent if you don't have a high school GED. You don't have to have any secondary school you don't need to be a college graduate to take AnimSchool. But you do need to have like a high school degree or equivalent in your country. So that you will need to have some documentation of that. And then if you have no 3D ability at all, that's okay. We still want you to maybe have some artistic ability. So please, you'll be probably submitting some drawings or digital pictures of work you've done. So Conor, you are a unique individual here, that you went through AnimSchool and have worked in the industry. How do you feel like AnimSchool gave you an edge, if it did? Like what's the difference of maybe going to AnimSchool versus just doing it on your own or going to a different school for you?
Well, for me, like the recordings were awesome, but like when it came to the industry, like I came from a community college, and so it was like basically my art teachers there were some artists, but the person that was teaching 3D at the community college never used the program before, and he was a great guy, and he learned as much as he could to teach us, but the school was just like, we're teaching Maya now. Does anyone want to teach Maya? And so I learned a lot, but it was nothing like AnimSchool, where you have industry professionals you can talk to, and you have those recordings you can go back to, and you have multiple perspectives, which always kind of, you're being graded by your teacher. So listen to what your teacher says, but you can go and you can watch the recording of another teacher teaching the same class, and it's the same exact lecture, just with a totally different perspective. And sometimes that's when it clicks, where you're like, oh, I needed to hear it explained to me like two different ways.
Yes.
Yeah. But like
that's kind of the told benefit of AnimSchool, guys, that Conor's talking about, which is when you go to AnimSchool, if you sign up for a class, you have access to all the recordings from, we record every class. So let's say you're taking from Conor and he's giving a lecture, like, it really makes a lot of sense. But like Conor said, there might be another teacher teaching Intro to Maya that also gave that same lecture. So you can go and watch the recording from another class of how they're explaining that same principle, and it might just click. So that's really cool to hear, Conor, that's what you did while you were at school. I think that's a huge benefit.
Yeah, but as for the industry itself, it's been so cool. Like I went from just community college background. I'm dyslexic. I was just like, I'm going to struggle to get into a 4-year school. And then I went to AnimSchool, and then I'm working with people that did go to a 4-year school. And they said, I went to this 4-year school, and then I started applying when I graduated, and I couldn't get in. I couldn't know and people were friendly. They would look at my reel and they'd be like, yeah, you need some polish work on your reel, so animate a few more shots. And they're like, I'm graduated. I don't even have access to the school anymore. And so they would take one of my friends, they took one AnimSchool class, like a like a more they had experience, so they just took like one polish animation class and then they immediately got hired. It was like, so there was a lot of examples like that. So I'm not throwing down brick and mortar schools. There are so many brick and mortar schools that are good, but that's the benefit of AnimSchool is we graduate you based off of what you did. Like we get you industry ready before you enter the industry. And yeah, so yeah, that's my perspective on it.
Well, like I said, I did come from a brick and mortar school, and my school actually has a pretty amazing animation department, and they regularly win student Emmys on their student films. I worked on a student film that got a student Emmy, and they recommend their students go to AnimSchool after, as like I said, as a finishing school, because even though their education is really good, AnimSchool really offers that specialization, that real polish, I think, that you need to just show yourself as an animator individual, because AnimSchool is unique in that a lot of brick and mortar schools, you work on a team with a lot of your other students working on a small part or generalist. And AnimSchool is very focused on getting those core specialized skills in a different emphasis. So like if you're an animation emphasis, you're really going to get some amazing, instruction and development. The other thing that's really cool about AnimSchool is you have your regular teacher like Connor, or more advanced in more advanced classes. We have a thing called general reviews. This is so amazing. So say you have your regular teacher and they're giving you critique. You have a chance twice a week to go to what's called general reviews, where we hire other industry professionals, where you can take in your shot and have another instructor give you advice on it. So maybe Connor's saying, hey, you need to do this and this, and you're just really struggling. You can take it to another second instructor, get their eyes on it, that can help you. And it's just amazing. Sometimes you need 2 or 3 like viewpoints, and you can even go up to them and say, hey, I want to show you my reel. Like, what shot should I put first? What is this one strong enough? So you can bring in your reel and have a reel review, and they're going to say, hey, this is cool, but it might not be good to show a recruiter. Like, that's a really good shot. It's really important to you, but it's pretty early on in your animation journey. And so you have this like emotional attachment to this shot where you were learning how to do a walk cycle. But you know what? These other shots you have are way better, that show walk cycles more advanced. You don't need to have that walk cycle in your reel. And so they just help you like curate the way you're presenting yourself. And so that's what's really cool. That's the real benefit, is someone saying, hey, did you know, like, you don't need to show your like run walk cycle because you're past that. And it's actually going to make you look more amateurish, even though it was really important to you. These other shots you did, they're good enough. You don't need to have 5 shots. Let's just put your 3 shots in there. And that's really the advantage, is having a pro tell you that.
That's happened to me before. And that also comes from, you like, if there's like a student that's like really, really crushing it in class, you can ask advice from, like, I mainly ask advice from, it's a skill that you learn to do in the industry. You learn to ask your coworkers about your reel if you're trying to get into another studio, or like so I did the same thing. I was applying for a job and I met this guy who I felt was like way better than me, and I asked him, like, could you look at my reel? And he was like, oh, there's this one piece, like, I know you've been working on it for a while, but like, cut it. And I was like, oh no. And then and I was like, I don't want to cut it. And then I cut it, and then I immediately got a job. I cut it, I posted it, and then I got a job.
Connor, I think they've asked Beethoven or Mozart like this. If you ask Beethoven or Mozart, like, what's your best piece? What's your best thing? What's funny sometimes is what we think is our best thing isn't what like someone else would. Like, we sometimes have an emotional attachment to our own work that's maybe not even our best work, and someone else can say, that's really good, but this one's better. You're like, really? I didn't know. And it's like, that's why it's great to get feedback. And I will say, like, it's hard to get critique sometimes, but that's another thing, is going through AnimSchool is really going to help you prepare for industry, because if you're working for somebody else, they are hiring you to solve a problem. You're not just an independent person making your own. If you're making your own film and you're doing all your own stuff, you can do whatever the heck you want. But if you're working for somebody else, they have specific problems that you need to solve. And so if you're doing animation or something doesn't look right to them, and they're saying, hey, I need you to change this and this and this, and you just say, well, I worked really hard on it, they're gonna be like, you're fired. Like, you're not doing what I need. So what's great about going to AnimSchool is you're gonna get people in industry say, hey, you worked really hard on it, but you're doing it wrong, or you really need to do this. And so it's kind of getting you inoculated. It's getting you kind of some calluses on your hand, like if you're playing guitar, just getting used to feedback and people telling you, you need to do this better. It's like having a coach, you know, getting you to fight better, to like play basketball better. Like you need that mentor, you need that instructor to be like, hey, you can do better. Like sometimes we don't know what we're capable of until someone says, hey, that's good, but can you push it a little further? If we don't have someone telling us we can go a little bit higher, a little bit harder, we don't know. And so having that pro look at you and go, hey, I know you're hot stuff. This is really good, but it could be better. Sometimes that's a big wake-up call. That's a big wake-up call. It can be hard. And so if you are going to come to AnimSchool, I would advise be ready for critique. Like grandma really loved your work. Your mom really loves your work, but now you're with pros, and listen to them. That's what you're paying for. That's what you get when you go to AnimSchool, is to have someone tell you the truth, that you need to be better, that you need better. That's why you're going to AnimSchool, is because if you just apply with what you have, it might not be good enough. And you might need somebody to tell you why it's not. And it's hard to know. It takes time to get that eye. And sometimes you can borrow the eye of a pro and say, hey, what's wrong with this? You can't even tell. Like Connor was saying, he didn't even know that wasn't good enough to get a job. And he took it out, and it was like, you're only as good as your best shot. So by him taking that out and leaving his better shots in, it helped him get a job, where if he had applied with that shot that someone else said, maybe take that out, he could have maybe not gotten that job. Is that fair to say, Connor? Like,
oh yeah. I was having a lot of fun. There was a lot of I was really having fun with that shot. But my friend was just candid with me, and that's why he's my friend, because he's candid with me. People that tell me the truth, I want them around. I never want them out of my life. I want people that are honest with me. But you know, the people that will tell you the truth, they'll tell you in like a respectful way. Like that's how you know they're a good artist. They'll tell you the truth in a respectful way. And yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Everybody having thick skin is a skill when it comes to receiving feedback. It's a skill that we develop. Everybody, when they first started getting feedback, I remember my first critiques, they kind of stung a little bit. I was like, oh geez, oh man. But then I was like, I slept on it, I woke up, and then I addressed the notes, and I was like, oh my gosh, and then you looked at what you did before, and you just, oh, I'm better now. And so it's like, and that's where the thick skin comes from, because it's like, you know, like it may be uncomfortable, but you know, like, oh, I'm gonna get better after this.
It is so cool, because AnimSchool is, you know, it seems like a long time if you're young, like 18 months, almost 2 years. That's a long time. It is fantastic to watch somebody go from intro to Maya to class 7. The improvement in such a short amount of time by having someone help curate your kind of path to a reel is phenomenal. And I think you can see that in the AnimSchool showcases. If you saw some of these, I've had a lot of people, I've read comments in our showcases where people say, this is bull crap. Like these guys already were animators, and they just came to your school to like do a shot at the end. And I think it was like 60 or 70% of the shots from this showcase, the students they started like class 0 or class 1. And that's like that's the real cool thing to see, is that you can, it doesn't mean that like it's magic that, oh, you just go and take a class and you automatically a good animator. The people who are coming to AnimSchool are hungry. They are ready to listen. They're ready to take that feedback from, like, why wouldn't you? That's kind of what you're doing. You're saying, I want a pro to look at what I'm doing and help me, guide me to know which path to take. And because you get a lot of different instructors and you have the general reviews, you can kind of get different feedback. And Connor could say something to me for real. Hey, Jesse, you should do this. And I'm like, I don't know if I really trust Connor. He's just saying that. I don't agree with him. And then you go to general reviews, and then the different instructor who's never talked to Connor is like, you know, you really need to work on this. You're like, oh, okay, I've heard it from 2 people. And the next week we go to a different interview, and you're like, oh, you're so sure Connor's wrong. And then the third instructor goes, you really need to work on this. And you're like, ah, dang it. I guess I need to work on this. That's what's really cool. Like you can kind of like be a detective and really find out if that feedback is true. If you're hearing it from different people, you can find out from your fellow classmates, from Connor, from a general review. So that's really how we built the school, to like really help you understand, like to find those blind spots. It's really hard because like this is a lot of work. But having that guide is it takes a lot of the fear out of this, because when I look at like a finished Pixar movie, I was watching Luca yesterday with my kids, and it's just gorgeous. Like the performances, the textures, the music, and you look at it and you go, that's just too hard. I could never do that. And you know what? You couldn't do it all by yourself for sure, but you could do a part of that, and we can demystify that. And that's why Connor's class, the Intro to 3D Maya is so cool, is you get a little taste of every part, like what he's doing right now. Connor's cooking. I don't know if you could see when he was just close to the little fingers. You see how he's just finessing those? It's kind of like he's drawing in 3D. I know it sounds weird to say drawing, but when I say drawing, it's kind of like that pose, that silhouette. Do you see on the left there? There's a really clear silhouette. If I was to take this into Photoshop and do the select tool and just select all around that body on the left, and then I used the paint bucket tool and I made it all blue, I would be able to tell through the silhouette what's going on. Like I could read it. I could see that. I understand that there's this guy in this pose. There's some perspective, right? You see his hand going back there. I know what arm is closer. I know arms further away. I know that Connor's talking about the S curve. Even if we got rid of all the detail on Malcolm right here, I can tell that his silhouette is good. I can tell that he has some knowledge there, right? Like, oh yeah, that's cool. You're able to do this.
There's a way to turn off the light.
You're doing like the flat shade, right? Like you can see like, oh, I can tell what's going on. And so that's, even though it seems really easy and fast what Connor's doing, it's actually, there's a lot of thought. He's really looking at how those negative shapes look. Like how close is that thumb to the head? Are we able to see what's going on? And that's what good like character design is. That's what good pose is. You guys have probably all seen online, right? Like where you take major characters like Mickey Mouse or Bugs Bunny and you just make them a black silhouette. You're able to tell who they are immediately because of that good silhouette. And that's where there's a lot of thought when you pose. You do those key poses. Is it just a big jumbled mess, or are these appealing, easy to read poses? It's something we talk a lot about at AnimSchool. So he's definitely like dealing with those kind of issues right now.
Yeah.
So
sure.
yeah, sorry. It's really fun to watch, right? Like it seems kind of a slow thing, but this is how it works, guys. The key pose is such a cool skill.
You can kind of see the chaos of the beginning, where like in the beginning I was like, oh shoot, and then I'm clicking around, and then I finally hit the pocket and figure out, okay, this is the groove.
Well, this is what's really cool is I love that you actually brought in another model of Malcolm. Look how dead. No offense to Malcolm there, right? Like he's like, wait, over there in the T pose, we call that the T pose, or like the A pose. You can see that he's got a blank stare, a blank personality. And what's cool about what Connor's done is he's given some life to the face. Like he's gone in and given personality and life. Like this is what an animator does. They take reference and the observation from life, and you can turn this like lifeless puppet into a living thing that like gets people to cry or to feel scared or to understand a story. And it's just amazing that you can pose something like that and get that emotional response, because it's really fun to see the Malcolm that's in the A pose. No emotional response. It's just a puppet. It's just this thing. And then seeing your pose, even though it's a static shot, like there's an intensity in his facial features now. There's action, there's weight, there's stretching. It's really cool. And like, I know we're probably getting close to where we need to finish the demo, but it's fun to see that you can get to this point actually pretty fast, to take something from a poseless blank to a story. There's a story here already, just with holding this object, this prop, and the facial expression. So that's what's really cool. It's kind of like a mini look into what Conor's class is like. And you can do this on your own. Like we're saying, this is available to you for free right now. You could find a free lightsaber right now. If you looked up 3D, you could say 3D lightsaber or 3D tool. Just Google it, and you could do this in the computer.
But yeah, and in a pinch, you could use just a cylinder. Just open up a cylinder and just
make it like really skinny and
make it really skinny and boom, lightsaber handle.
It's just Donatello's staff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think sometimes too, which is again, AnimSchool is maybe not for everybody, but I think if you're wondering, hey, like try this out, like just open up a character in Maya or even in Blender. Like if you feel like you don't want to do that trial in Maya, go to download Blender. It's free. Find a free character and try some of these things out. See if you just like this. If you like this idea of posing a character, you don't have to use Maya, like I said, but see if you like that and get as far as you kind of can. And when you get stuck, I think consider the Intro to Maya class at AnimSchool. It's a really cool thing, if that makes sense for you.
Yeah, see if a spark happens. Like a lot of times when I first did this stuff, I'd be working on something in 3D, like way back in the community college days, and like there was just a spark of inspiration. And I was like, whoa, what was that? And yeah, anyway.
Yeah, this is cool. So Conor, how much further would you want to take this?
This is pretty. This is near done.
Okay, cool.
My poses are really only done once it's in motion, because I kind of go back and forth and compare them to the other poses for context. So
the next step would be if this demo was to continue, you would do a secondary pose and then kind of like we were talking about, have the computer kind of do the in-betweens for you.
Yeah, for sure. I would figure out the first thing is like I have the story, and I'd probably take some other poses or video reference and figure out like, all right, this is his point A, what's his point B, how's he feeling? And a way to start really strong is just write that stuff down. Like, okay, all right, I'm doing this pose, he's starting here, how's he feeling at this time? Like, what's his training? Who's his master? And you just write down the context, the lore of what you're working on. And, in the industry, it's called like a studio library, where like they give you like a document, like this is the character's history, and you get to dive into this character and become it. It's really cool. Anyway.
That's awesome, Conor. So I hope that this demo is kind of demonstration. We're hoping that it's just sparked something in you that you guys go, even with the free software that's available, try some of the stuff out. See if this seems like something you would enjoy doing. It's really cool. Like if you go to AnimSchool, we'll give you the tools to really understand this stuff. But try it out. I mean, there's really like the animation industry as a whole, like whether it's a brick and mortar school or a different animation school, like I think we all are like on the same team where we're trying to tell amazing stories with our art. And so I think it's always good to remember, why do I want to do this? What is the reason? And I think when we go back to when we were kids, like you were talking about how you were like doing stop motion with Legos, is you something in that just really spoke to you, Conor, and something like for me, it was like Jim Henson movies or like Disney movies, or it's like, I really want to do that stuff. I really want to be a part of that. Look into your heart and go, is that something you want to do? And maybe try some of these things out. And if it makes sense, we can kind of show you how to get there, and we can get you at the end of the day, it's the work that's going to get you there. And then once you're there, like to just keep going and like, maybe like Conor, you come back and you give back. It's just a really, really cool thing. So, Conor, like, thanks so much for that demo. And I know like it'll continue this kind of stuff. Like what would happen in Conor's classes, he'd then show you how to like animate some little things on this and some rendering, texture. So a really good sampler of what's to come later in the program. And then you take some of that and then you continue on in the other classes. Like I said, this is AnimSchool is for people who are serious about working in the industry. This is not like a hobby school. This isn't a school that you go. I'm sure it is fun. It is fun. This stuff is fun. But the purpose of AnimSchool is to train the next generation of 3D professionals. So this is definitely like our purpose. Like when you graduate, we're checking in with you. We're giving you support because we want you to get a job. Like we have an 80% plus employment rate post graduation. We this is why what we care about, that we're an accredited school. We're not a degree giving school. We have a lot of people asking, are these credits that transfer? That's not what this is about. This is really about kind of like a trade school. It's a trade school where at the end of the day, you have something that can help you apply for jobs in the industry. So that, to be clear, that is what AnimSchool is for, is to get you something that you're ready for your junior position. That is what we are trying to do. That is why we exist. It is fun, but this is about learning how to break in, and we're doing everything we can to stay up to date with what's going on. Connor, can you speak to that at all, or any opinion about that? Like, what do you think AnimSchool is for? Like, what does that mean to you? The purpose of AnimSchool.
Well, yeah, just
Yeah,
it's
this
really
is
for
answering
people.
this question right here. Like, it's not
Oh,
equivalent to a degree. It is
all
not.
right, sorry, one second. I actually have another. Oh, there we go. I have another tab open.
Yeah.
Let's see. What's the? Where is he? Is there a question?
Oh, well, there was just a question I was answering that I just didn't put on the screen, which is,
Okay, for sure.
like getting, like, if you graduate from AnimSchool, is it the equivalent to a bachelor's degree? And I would say no. We are an accredited school, and you get a certificate that means something because we're accredited. We are, like, to stay accredited, we have to meet certain criteria that, we have a certain amount of people who get jobs post graduation, that we are what we say we are. That when we're getting people industry ready, that we have designed a curriculum that actually does that. So
Yeah.
and that's where I feel like you should watch. If you're looking at any school, you should watch and look at the work that the students are producing. That's the best gauge. And if you look at what the students are producing at AnimSchool when they graduate, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, they what they're looking for when studios are hiring, what they're looking for is um we need people to solve these problems. And so if you give them a piece of paper that says I can solve these problems, then um then they're like, "Oh, cool. But can you?" Having proof that you can solve those problems, and that's what your reel is. Like, and we're focused on presentation. Like if we look at this, right? We are focused on putting teaching you to put your best foot forward, right? And so this is better than like this is a class 1. Imagine this student at class 7, the last class, with so much feedback and whatnot. So it's like it's really the proof is in what you see. It's almost tangible, like with the textures and everything. So that's what studios are looking for. And I've been in the studios, and I'm looking for this. Like I'm an animation director. I'm looking for this. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, and I do hiring too. Like I recently hired a rigger, and this is exactly what we're looking for. Anyway, let's see. Oh, for sure. Cool. I thought there was a glitch there. Oh, we're just going through some awesome classes. That is sick. It's great to see what people are doing on the modeling side. I think the audio cut out or something. I can't hear anything. see. Uh-oh. I think the audio cut out, or my microphone did. Headphones.
Oh,
there we go.
Okay. Did you hear what did you guys hear what I was saying, or was I muted the whole time? I don't know. But anyway.
I couldn't hear you, but maybe that's my issue.
No, that's okay. So what I was saying all this stuff. I'm going to say it again, just real quick about Zenith. So this is Zenith, and this is an example of someone in our advanced production modeling class. And she kind of started off more like what you were showing with that lightsaber. And this is what we're saying is, how can you take, solve that problem for the animation studio or the game where they have, hey, we have this character we want you to make. And look how she's been able to translate this into 3D. And this is the kind of work that we would love, our students to apply with. And I know for a fact that she's going to be working in industry. If she's listening, like you're doing amazing work. This is the kind of work that gets you jobs.
Yeah, I would reach out. I would definitely reach out.
You go, okay, can this person, if you're looking at this and said, should we hire her? I don't know if she can. You look at this and you say, if she's able to translate this concept to here, that she's going to be able to solve the problem that you have, because she's so visually literate, really understands. And not only is she showing that she can match the colors and lighting, she's also showing you she's not afraid of her work. She's showing you, hey, look, here's the wireframe. Like, look, I made this. I understand what good topology is. So what's cool is that our instructors are teaching the students so that if they had to work with them, that they have the skills they need when they're working with them. That's what's really cool.
That is so true. Like a lot of my students I really want to work with. Like I want to meet all of them, but like a lot of my students, I was like, oh geez, is it too soon to hire? It is, because it's intro to Maya, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's, I think, the real AnimSchool advantage is you're getting to work with industry pros that are in the industry, a fantastic network, a guided kind of like a journey that, if, like I said, you could do this on your own, absolutely. But how many wrong paths are you going to take? When I go on YouTube, when I watch a video of someone telling me something, is that someone who's just trying to get clicks because they said, here's the #1 secret of how to whatever? I don't know who they are. I have no trust. AnimSchool is an accredited school. We hire professionals who are at top studios. And so take, like I said, at the end of the day, just look at the work that our students doing. Watch our showcases. Look at the other schools. Look at the work that's being produced, and make the decision for yourself. Hope we gave you guys some good tips today. Connor, thank you so much for kind of showing everybody what you can do with Malcolm. You guys can go to animschool.edu. We shared links in the chat. Go download Malcolm, play around in Maya, and when you get stuck, give us email us, ask us questions. We're happy to answer them. We check our YouTube channel. We have a lot of free tips and tricks. We're always sharing cool things about the industry. I think it's a great time to get in the industry. Like, the industry is always in flux. And if you're scared about the future, is start thinking like an artist. Start having faith that you have something to say. And if you work hard, I think there's a lot of great opportunities. And to not be scared, to just put your best foot forward. And one thing to do if you're feeling scared is go be with strong people. And go be with people in the industry that are strong. They'll make you stronger. If you're worried, go be with a stronger crowd. And that's who we hire at AnimSchool. We hire strong industry professionals. So if you're interested in taking the Intro to 3D Modeling course, it starts in the first week of January. The last day to apply is January 30th. So go give that, go to animschool.edu and check that out. And we hope to see you. And if not, like, we're going to be doing more of these kind of YouTube lives where we're giving out free tips and just talking about the animation industry. Connor, do you have anything else to say? Why should somebody take your class? Why take Intro to Maya when you could just probably go learn on your own?
It's an adventure. You get a crazy old wizard. I know I don't look old, but I feel old. But anyway, and it's just exciting. The people that you meet along the way, the the dragons, like even like adventures come with trials and tribulations, but once you conquer that dragon, once you take your lightsaber, I know there's no dragons in Star Wars. Oh, wait, there's a crate dragon. Anyway,
Yeah, that's right.
so that's truly why. And it's like, if you're curious, if you are just like, well, how does that work? If you're the one sitting down watching a movie and speculating how they're doing things, like, oh, I bet they did this, or I bet they use this lens, I bet they did this or that. Oh, the color in this is, if people are like, shh, stop telling us what you think of the movie, you're the type of person that would want to take this class, because you get to see behind the scenes, the secret of how all this stuff is done. So
I think that's what's so cool about your class, just to kind of demystify for you really quickly, like how this all works. So it's a really great introduction, and then you can kind of decide which adventure you want to take. The character program, which are making characters, rigging, or the animation program where you're learning how to do those performances and move those characters. Well, thank you so much, Connor. I learned a lot today, and if you guys have any more questions, just email us at admin@animschool.edu, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. And then just stay tuned as we do more of these kind of YouTube lives. And we really appreciate you, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. So talk to you guys later.
Thanks, Jesse. Bye. Bye,
Connor.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching.